everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have something a little different. Now, some of you are aware of an announcement that was posted across social media platforms in the last few days regarding tutors from the Arthur Findlay College. For those of you that don't know the college is a hub for spiritual education and is regarded as a center of excellence throughout the world. Our next guest is the former principal of the college and former president of the Spiritualist National Union. I almost got it one way around, David. Please welcome Minister David Bruton. Welcome, David, to Spiritual Talk.
Good morning, Paul. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and good morning to everybody watching online.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning. It's a pleasure to have you on here. But David, as I said at the top of the introduction, can you shed some light of what's been happening across social media, please?
Well, a few days ago, posts started appearing on social media from a group of 20 tutors at the college who announced the fact that from the 24th of August, they were going to temporarily withdraw their services. Now, you must understand, I'm not privy to what's been going on in the background from the union's perspective. But I know, having, like many people, read the posts on social media, I'm concerned and I'm sad about the situation that a group of such respected tutors who have dedicated a lot of time to the work of the college and supporting the spiritual development of people from around the world over many years, potentially may not be teaching there anymore.
Yeah, that's quite a difficult announcement as well. And some of these people are household names. Many people would know these tutors, and it's quite upsetting. And the potential damage that it could cause the movement.
Yes, that is the concern. The college has a proud history. It's respected internationally for its work. Back in the 60s, when it was set up, when Arthur Findlay gifted his home to the union to establish this college for the study of psychic sciences, in the last 50 plus years, a lot of people, a lot of very, very well-known people and pioneers of the movement have been part of the experience and the journey of the Arthur Findlay College. And I understand things need to change. I understand that things have to move forward and we have to progress. The very essence of life, we can't stand still, can we?
Yeah.
But it just seems to me, looking from the outside as I am, so sad that whatever's happened has come to this point where fellow spiritualists can't sit round a table and talk to one another and find a resolution for the betterment of the college and also the union. The union is heavily reliant upon the revenue from the college. So, for the greater good and to keep things on a spiritual level, surely there's got to be a way that we can find a solution to this problem.
There is a process, though, David. There is opportunity for new members to become president. I believe there's an election at the moment. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's correct. The president, the position of president, is a 2-year term of office, and on very long established principles, the Spiritualist National Union is a democratic organisation.
Yes.
And the president of the union is voted for by all the individual members and also all the churches around the UK and our centres abroad. So we are democratic, and unfortunately you're not able to elect a prime minister directly in the UK, but you can elect the president of the union.
Okay, David, I believe you're also up for election as well. Now, in your past 12 years and the experience you had as president, what would you, from that experience going forward, what would you do differently now?
I think over the last 2 years that I've been out of office, as a person, I've changed considerably through a lot of personal experiences in my life, which are perhaps not appropriate to share at this point. But sometimes when you step away from a role, especially a role that is as demanding as president of the SNU, you get time to think, you get time to reflect and ponder. And the union and spiritualism is not about one person. It's about everybody being part of an organization that is progressive, that is inclusive, that also has a sense of passion. We are a religion, and I think that sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
And in my view, any kind of religion, and there's a plethora of religions in our world today, but any kind of religion has to have some impact on you spiritually. And I think the teachings of spiritualism, the work of our pioneers, the inspiration that comes to us from the spirit world affords us the opportunity to develop that spirituality. And through the development of that spirituality, to refine our own experience and our own understanding. And I think I've been doing a lot of reflection over the last couple of years, and I don't think you could possibly sit for a term of 12 years as I did and feel that you've got everything right. I well understand I didn't get everything right. You make decisions, you do what you feel is best at the time, but there's always another way, there's always a better way. And as we grow and we learn through our experiences, that allows us to develop that thinking. And I think if obviously the election is taking place, you're quite right. Voting papers are out at the moment. The members will have the choice and they will choose who they feel is the best candidate. If they afford me that opportunity and that honour to be president of the union once more, then I'm certainly going to approach it from a very different perspective than I did in 2010 when I first took the office. I always reflected there was no work within the union or any other aspect of life that could prepare you to do that job. It's a unique job. It's a demanding job. It is a testing job. And of course, we are answerable to our members, to our churches, to our congregations. And, you'll never get everything right for people. Some people will love you, some people will not.
Yes.
So we have to consider that.
Keep everybody happy is a difficult thing.
I would almost say it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. But moving forward, how could we build those bridges? Because there's a lot of people, there's been a lot of stuff on social media, not always positive, sadly. But how would you build those bridges again, Dave, especially with the tutors that are potentially step back from the college? Because it's really important. For a lot of people, their household names.
Absolutely. Well, the only way we can begin to create a healing in this situation, which I think is needed, is to actually sit down with people and to talk to them and to listen to their concerns. I'm sure those 20 tutors, not one of them has taken this decision to withdraw their services to the college lightly. I'm sure they've spent many sleepless nights pondering and considering whether this is the correct action to take. And my heart goes out to them. It really does, because it's been such a big part of their life and their spiritual work and development themselves. So I think sooner or later, there has to be a sitting down, there has to be a frank sharing of views, an acceptance of demands on both sides of the table, and a negotiation. And surely, if we can't do that as spiritualists with one another, I think that's a very sad day.
Yeah. Well, I have been privileged to visit the college on several occasions, and I've had some excellent tutors. The pressure on the tutors is quite it's not an easy task. You start work early in the morning, you're there all day to late at night. And then there's the social aspect as well. Some tutors like to socialize at the end of the day as well. And that's great for interaction with a lot of the tutors are people, if that makes sense. They're spending so much time and they give so much effort, which is why it was such a shock announcement to see what had happened and what had gone out across social media. We are a non-biased podcast. We allow people to have their say and for people to make their own minds up. But going forward for the tutors, do you think there needs to be a better environment for them anyway?
I think without a doubt, the tutors work incredibly hard, and the day that you laid out there is quite correct. I've been there, I've experienced it, as you have yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that they do it. Yes, all right. It's an income for them. It's a job, but they also do it because of their love and dedication for the movement and helping people and supporting people on their journey within spiritualism and their spiritual evolvement.
Yeah.
So they're dedicated people. Like you, I don't think it's appropriate that in any way I go into the rights and wrongs of what has and hasn't happened, because I can't speak from a position of total knowledge, because I haven't. I've read what I've read, and I've spoken to one or two of the tutors, but I think this is maybe a negative aspect of social media, because people sometimes, if there's a void, they fill it with their own thoughts and opinions, which is quite a natural thing for us to do. But we don't always know the whole story and the whole picture. I mean, my experience of the college is the conditions there are reasonably good, but not ever decrying the fact that they work incredibly hard, and it's demanding, because you're at the beck and call of the students, literally, as you said, from 8 in the morning, sometimes until 9, 10 o'clock at night. And that can be challenging, I know.
But it is regarded as a centre of excellence throughout the world. Some of the experiences there, and I know mediums that have said to me they love their experience there. I recently worked with 3 ladies that spent a week there, and their experience, they love that. They just feel that they're home, and it will be such a shame to kind of degrade that, not to degrade it, but to lose that reputation of excellence. It would be such a shame. So I guess the elections have come at the right time. But David, I also kind of want to ask you about moving into the future, because I think that's really important as a movement. And where do you see the the Spiritualist National Union going? Where do you see the progression for the future? Because it's such a difficult thing. I'm sorry to waffle about this, but and we've touched on this. Social media, it's a new platform. It's almost a new religion today. People are addicted to their phones, and they're kind of missing. How do we connect to people and bring new members? How can you bring new members in? It's so difficult, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, people come to spiritualism in many varied ways. And for many reasons, multiple reasons. I guess in many respects, the shop window of our spiritualism is our churches, which are vitally important, and they play an amazing role, operated by a whole army of dedicated individuals that volunteer their time to keep their churches running.
Yes.
And so for many people that are looking for something, that have perhaps lost a loved one, that are grieving, that need to approach a medium, sometimes the first experience is literally walking through the door of a spiritualist church. And let's also acknowledge the churches have not had an easy time.
No.
The pandemic, which has affected the whole world, had a very negative effect on many aspects of our lives, but our churches were affected, because I think in the early days when we came out of lockdown, a lot of the regulars that would support the churches were not always prepared to come back, and until they felt totally safe. So I also, as a role that I've held recently, as a director of an organization called the Interfaith Network, I have a lot of dealings with other faith-based religion, and a lot of them speak of very similar problems: falling congregations, the challenge of maintaining buildings, some of which were built over 100 years ago in our case. In the Church of England, I think they've got some more bigger problems, but that's another matter. And it's a struggle. It is a struggle. And one issue that I know many churches speak to me about is they are required to actually hold a divine service as part of what they do as a religion, as a church. But it's very difficult to get people to come and attend the divine service. But a lot more people will come and attend just a demonstration of mediumship, where all you're getting is evidential mediumship, not necessarily the philosophy of our movement, the prayers and all the other aspects of a divine service. So that really creates problems.
Yes.
I travel up and down the country and continue to serve churches, some 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes. And all I'll say is that there's a very mixed situation out there. Some churches are very successful. They attract a wide cross-section, generational cross-section. You know, it's wonderful to go into a church and see people under 50, you know, which is great. And it's lovely when you see teenagers and early 20s and people engaging within the movement. So I think that's a problem, a challenge that we face, how to be relevant to the current generation and the generations that will follow. And you're right, social media has had a big effect, but some churches are using that, and they're using social media to promote themselves and to promote the work they do. And I actually saw recently a church in the East Midlands that put some film on social media around their healing service. And it explained what healing's about. What will you actually experience when you come into the church? And I think that's a fantastic idea, because sometimes for many people, just crossing the threshold of a church is the biggest challenge. And once they've done that and they realize that we are pretty much normal people, you know, with normal issues, but we've got this amazing, wonderful, spiritual message to share, then usually once they've crossed the threshold, they will come back, and that is positive.
But that's the challenge: embracing technology and, you know, reaching the younger generation to replenish the churches, to get them infused about the message. There's so many different aspects to this that we could break down in terms of, does the service itself within the spiritualist church need to change to fit into a modern concept? I'm sorry, a lot of people are going to shout at me right now, but I was thinking around the lines.
I can hear them shouting. I really can. You'll have the traditionalists who say you will not change our service. Yeah. We like it. Yeah. And then you will have the people, the reformers, if you like, that think it does need to change. Yeah. I think as long as we remember there are elements of the service that we have to include to be legally compliant and to meet the requirements of our charitable status and as a place of worship. So we can't change those, but maybe I think you could walk into some of our churches and get an experience on a Sunday evening very similar to what they were getting 50, 60, 70 years ago, you know. And I also happen to think that the spirit world is progressive. And I think that if we could take guidance from them and implement a few changes, carrying our supporters and members with us, but also showing people coming in newly for the first time that we are taking account of modern technology. I know there's 1 or 2 churches and many churches took to Zoom and other platforms in the lockdown so that they could carry on and they could still operate and they could still run a service. And that's obviously dropped off as everybody's got back to being in person. But there are still one or two churches that actually do a dual service. So they have an in-person service, but they also broadcast that via a system like Zoom. So that is there. And I think if it's done well and it's done professionally, then it can work, and it does work. And it's about getting out the message to people. And that means, as well as the churches, looking beyond the churches and promoting what we stand for, explaining what we stand for. Through IFN, I met many people from the clergy of other faiths, and a lot of them had heard of spiritualism but had little or no knowledge or understanding of what it meant. And I think as long as we can find a way to explain that in a logical, thoughtful, and spiritual way, then that may well lead people to come into our churches, to come into our meetings, to engage with us and realize what spiritualism has to offer.
Yeah, and that's really powerful and a powerful message, David. But there is a lot of mediums that are shying away from, and me included. The worst for me was the idea of getting up and doing philosophy. But I've come through that, I like to think, and I actually enjoy it. Though, but there's still mediums out there that would rather, because there's a place for it, and I believe it's also a legal requirement, isn't it? Philosophy itself, but
well,
but then
I was going to say, we have to be able to promote the philosophy that underpins our religion.
Yeah,
I think if your only focus is mediumship, and you then miss something that is so much wider, so much broader. And when I'm teaching, one example I always give is, and many other people have used this, so I don't claim it to be my own, but if you go and work in a church, as you've done, Paul, I'm sure many times, and you've got a congregation of 60 people, wonderful, with possibly in a divine service 25 or 30 minutes to demonstrate your gift as a medium.
Yeah.
Now, I'm old school. I'm a traditionalist. And I was taught back in the day, when Adam was a lad, about 300 years ago, that an average message should be about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you do the maths and you divide 30 by 7, you are only going to reach a small proportion of your congregation through your demonstration of mediumship.
Yeah.
But you can touch each and every one of them and inspire the thinking of each and every one of them by a well presented and delivered inspirational address.
Yeah.
And that also, many times, certainly from my own experience and many other speakers, you are touched by the inspiration of the spirit world. And that, to me, is amazing. And often people come up to you afterwards and say how much they've enjoyed the philosophy. And you can go into some of our churches, and there's people sitting in the churches that have supported the church. Spiritualism is their life, and they're there every service. Every week, week after week after week, they support their church loyally, and all credit to them for doing that.
Yeah.
But Paul, medium to medium, how many times do you need to have evidence that your loved ones survive? Yes, we all like a message. We all like to hear from someone that we've loved and lost, that's been an important part of our life. But how many times do you need to have that evidence provided?
Yeah.
So I think as we come into spiritualism and develop in spiritualism and learn within spiritualism, yes, the evidence at the beginning is the hook, because it convinces you that there is something behind what we are claiming. But there is so much more there. And the philosophy informs the way we live, and also, I think, helps our understanding to prepare us for the next stage of life that we move to when we leave this physical world.
Yeah. Well said, David. Thank you for that. But it's the challenge of getting the people back in, and I was going to suggest, I've been to services where they've been live online as well. Is that something you would consider, or not consider, or not make compulsory? Encourage churches maybe to try that to get people through the door.
I think the more we can do to promote spiritualism to the wider general public, the better. And that can be done in a myriad of ways. Yes, social media is a powerful tool. And if it's done well and done correctly, then it will help people and perhaps signpost them to our churches where we need them to be.
Yeah.
But I think also spiritualism, and through its history, has had different experiences with media, mainstream media I'm talking about now. But certainly in the last 20 years, I think the way media has treated us and respected us has changed. And I think if we are careful and we do it in the right way, working with the mainstream broadcasters, I've done some work for Radio 4, for the BBC, for various film companies, some of which have come to Stansted, as have other people, But I think if you can reach so many people through those channels, and it can't be a one size fits all. We can't only have one tool in our toolbox. We've got to have many tools. We have a group of people, dedicated people, volunteers, and they all have various skills and abilities. And I think sometimes we've got to find ways of accessing those skills and abilities and allowing them to take part and to contribute to their church, to their area, and to the union as a whole. Yeah. Because the thing is, unlike many other religions, we think of the Bible in Christianity, the Quran, and many other sacred texts within other religions. Spiritualism doesn't have that. Yeah. And I think that was the way it was intended to be, personally, because I think spiritualism by its very nature is experiential. And the experience that we all get helps inform our journey through spiritualism. Yeah. So there is not one book that says everything, and there's many books. You can walk into most churches and you'll see a library, and sadly nowadays the library is often not touched month in, month out, which is sad because there's some amazing writings within those libraries. But this is the nature. We are a movement. We are a religion. Some people say we're a way of life. I say that once you've declared yourself as a spiritualist, once you've accepted the teachings and the philosophy of spiritualism, your life will never be the same again. Yeah, it is transformational. That is the power of the message that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, David, coming back to the elections, is there something you'd like to say to the members right now? I know you're passionate about what's happening and what has happened on social media. Is there something you'd like to kind of say to help people at home?
Okay, well, we have two candidates for the position of president. There's myself and Minister Jackie Wright. We're both different people. We've both worked together over the years in various positions. She was my vice president when I was president for a time. We both have different skills, different abilities, different ways of communicating. So I think the way really is to leave the decision to the members, let them draw their own conclusion. on who they feel out of the two of us is going to be right to lead the union forward for the next 2 years. I would love it if they'd vote for me, but equally I recognise we live in a democracy, and if they feel Jackie is the right person, then they must vote for Jackie, and I respect that.
And I kind of want you to big yourself up in a way. What would you do if you took over tomorrow? What would members expect?
Yeah, well, if I took over tomorrow, I think the first thing in my in-tray would be dealing with the situation at the college and securing the future of the college. That, to me, is paramount. The union is about the churches. The churches are very, very important and very important to me. I've spent 20 odd years on a church committee, so I know what it's like running churches, and sometimes it's tough, hard work. And I think that the union was formed with a view of drawing the churches together and creating one voice. And the work that happens within the union to support the churches in many, many ways is important and critical work, and that may continue. But I think also we need to have a dialogue.
Yes.
Because it's very easy when you're sitting there at national level thinking you know what people need. But sometimes if you actually just take the time and go out and ask them what they need, or perhaps explain why you're doing something and the actions that you're taking and the policies that you're introducing, so that you can explain them to people and help them to understand. They won't all like them, but at least if you take the time to explain yourself, rather than impose things, just explain them and listen to what the people want themselves. I think that's a key issue.
In terms of a mission statement, David, you kind of nailed it almost with that. Do you think that things need to change within the movement to promote that, what you've just said, in terms of conflict resolution and other bits and pieces that you were talking about within the union? Do you think there needs to be a more simpler structure?
The structure that we've got at the moment was introduced in the 1970s, and
Right.
because it's man-made, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I think that just coming in promising wholesale reform is an easy way of maybe attracting the support of various people. But ultimately, I see the reasoning behind some of the things and the way they are done. That's not saying that they can't be done better. Everything can be improved. That's the very nature of evolution and progression.
Yeah.
But I think, yes, I think the strapline that I've used on my election campaign is uniting the union again. And I think that we need to find a sense of unity. The very word union speaks about people coming together and respecting one another, listening to their views, but working together. We shouldn't be arguing, we shouldn't be fighting, we shouldn't be falling out. We should be working together to get the message of spirit where it needs to be in this world, out there to the general public, so they too can appreciate the power that the message has for this world.
Well said, David. Thank you for that. And I think, from my own perspective, and I'm not sure whether I kind of feel like a naughty boy here. I'm not a member, David, so I'm so sorry about that. And maybe
You can join.
But I love mediumship. I love the college. I love what it represents. I love the pioneers. You know, one of my inspirations is Gordon Higginson, Glyn Edwards. There's so many mediums out there that have gone before us, and the legacy of that college needs to stay. It needs, but it also needs to grow, and that's the tricky one for the next president. How we move forward, how you grow as a movement. And you have made great strides. It was nice to see Jackie at the cenotaph. That was a first, wasn't it? I believe. Being recognised.
Well, no, We achieved that in 2018, and I was the
Oh,
first president to actually represent spiritualism at the cenotaph, and that was the most, potentially the proudest day of my life.
oh,
And it's
yeah,
great now that that's carried on. Jackie's done the last couple of years as president, and obviously whoever carries on as president after the election will be there in November, and that's a proud
yeah.
achievement for the whole movement. And that
So,
wasn't my effort, that was the effort of a lot of people
yeah,
that really wanted to see that day, and it was great to be part of it.
yeah, absolutely. And I wish you well, David. I wish you the very best. I hope you can bring that,
Okay.
the solidarity and the movement moving forward. We wish you the best of luck. Minister David Bruton,
Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
thank you so much today. That's been brilliant. Thank you so much.